Libra. What's in store for you this weekend is spine-chilling. There's a kind of chill that doesn't come from the weather. It comes from within, creeping up your spine before any logical explanation. And if you're a Libra, you may have felt it in recent days without knowing what to name it. A shiver that appears out of nowhere, in the middle of a casual conversation, or right at bedtime, when your mind should be quiet and instead insists on revisiting things you swore you'd left behind. Everyone thinks they know Libra from the same repeated image, the kind, balanced person who gives in to maintain peace, who smiles even when inside everything is anything but calm. But this gentleness has never been the complete picture. It's only the part that appears on the outside, the part that the world sees and approves of. Behind it lies a scale that is in constant motion, weighing every word, every decision, every gesture, trying to find a point of equilibrium that perhaps never truly existed. And this weekend in August carries something different. It's not just any date on the calendar. There's a silent tension building behind the scenes of your life, and perhaps you've already noticed small signs of it. A restlessness without apparent reason. A strange urge to review old decisions, an uncomfortable feeling that something is about to demand a stance. Libra has spent its entire life learning to avoid this moment. But this time, what's approaching isn't asking for permission. The mechanics behind this are simpler and more painful than they seem. Within Libra, there is a protective mechanism that works silently all the time, postponing what needs to be faced. It postpones the confrontation. It postpones the uncomfortable truth. It even postpones its own will, because assuming what one truly wants has always seemed too risky, capable of breaking some fragile balance that was built with so much effort. And it is precisely this habit of postponing that is about to collide with something that no longer tolerates waiting. Perhaps you recognize this pattern in yourself right now, at this very moment, listening to these words. The obsession with keeping everything balanced on the outside, smiling, reconciling, while inside, something becomes a little more unbalanced with each passing day. You've learned to be the point of stability for others, but who maintains their own balance when no one is watching? This weekend carries a different weight. It's not just a passing astrological configuration. It's an invitation, or perhaps a demand, for Libra to stop outsourcing decisions that only they can make. And the question that lingers silently is what happens when the scales, tired of trying to balance the two sides, simply stop moving. There's a difference between keeping the peace and running away from yourself, and Libra often confuses these two things with almost automatic ease. From an early age, she learned that disagreeing is costly, that imposing her will can push away loved ones, that there's always a gentler way to say no without actually saying no. And so, year after year, she piled up small concessions, small silences, small reduced versions of herself, until the distance between who she is inside and who she shows on the outside became too great to continue being ignored. This weekend doesn't arrive alone. It arrives after months of signs that have been dismissed one by one. An exhaustion with no medical explanation, a feeling of always being in control and, at the same time, of not controlling anything that really matters. A recurring desire to disappear for a few days without giving an explanation to anyone, and a strange feeling is growing inside you. And the question that lingers is simple yet terrifying. What do you do when the scale stops moving? It was in seeking answers to these reflections that the digital book, The 12 Laws of the Universe, that helped the zodiac sign overcome spiritual envy, was born. More than just a simple read, it brings together teachings, interpretations, and exercises to help you understand patterns, develop a more conscious attitude, and cultivate a stronger mindset in the face of difficulties. It's not about predicting the future or exchanging one uncertainty for another. It's about learning to recognize, in the midst of your own silence, what truly belongs to you and what has always been merely the weight of others' expectations. For Libra, who build so much of their identity from the gaze of others, this is the kind of inner work that changes everything inside before changing anything outside. It's not about pleasing others better. It's about ceasing to need to please in order to feel whole. You are, right now, still processing what you just heard, recognizing in yourself this pattern of procrastination. This discomfort is not without reason, and it won't disappear on its own just because the video continues. It demands something concrete now, before the rush of daily life lets this clarity slip away again. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, access is subject to limited availability. Click now and download your copy. Meanwhile, leave a comment below. When was the last time you postponed an important decision just to keep the peace with someone? Notice how this scale never rests. It's constantly moving, even in small decisions, even when no one is watching. Choosing a restaurant, replying to a message, deciding whether to speak or keep it to oneself, everything goes through the same endless weighing process, as if there were always an invisible judgment waiting to happen if it miscalculates. It's like that old market scale, the one with two metal pans, that the owner never really unlocks. It swings, 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 and rarely shows a final number, because stopping the swing would mean taking a position, and taking a position has always seemed too dangerous. Ask any Libra about the last time they made a decision without first considering the consequences for everyone around them, and they'll likely need to think quite a bit before answering. Not because they lack conviction, on the contrary, Libras tend to have strong opinions, keen sensitivity, and a very clear aesthetic and ethical sense of what is right. The problem has never been not knowing what they think. The problem is the emotional cost of expressing it without first calculating the impact on each person involved. And this calculation, done silently dozens of times a day, is exhausting in a way that no one on the outside can see. But there's a difference between keeping the peace and running away from yourself, and it's easy to confuse the two when you've learned from a very young age that disagreeing is costly, that imposing your will can push away those you love, that there's always a gentler way to say no without really saying no. And so, year after year, small concessions, small silences, small reduced versions of who she really is piled up until the distance between what she shows on the outside and what she feels on the inside became too great to continue being ignored. And that's precisely where the most uncomfortable part of this story lies. The harmony that everyone admires in Libra is sometimes just a very tidy room hiding a drawer that no one has opened in years. On the outside, everything is in order. Inside, carefully guarded, lies something she never had the courage to face head-on, an old resentment, a desire that seemed too impossible to say aloud, a version of herself that was silenced because it seemed safer that way. And this weekend, in an almost unsettling way, she threatens to open exactly that drawer. Perhaps that's why the shiver appeared before any explanation. Some older, wiser part of me already knew that this drawer wouldn't stay closed forever. You've probably experienced a moment like this without using the right name. A conversation that seemed to be about any topic, but which deep down touched on something much older. A disproportionate reaction to a small comment. A sudden urge to cry for no apparent reason in the middle of an ordinary day. These are signs that the drawer is ajar, even if you've tried hard to keep it closed. And the problem with keeping a drawer closed for too long is that it doesn't disappear. It just gets heavier, harder to open, without everything falling out at once. What lies within may be frightening at first glance, but there's also a way to open that drawer without saying goodbye to the process, to confront what's been hidden without drowning in it. This is exactly the kind of practical tool that the digital book, The 12 Laws of the Universe that help the zodiac sign overcome spiritual envy, brings together teachings and exercises to transform what has been hidden into real understanding, instead of it remaining just a burden stored in the dark. For Libra, who values visible beauty and harmony, this is an invitation to discover a deeper beauty, one that doesn't depend on hiding anything. Access is limited. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and start looking inside that drawer with new eyes. There is also another pattern that Libra carries almost unconsciously, that of molding itself to the other to keep the bonds alive. It's like a plant that, by growing so much towards the light of another person, forgets exactly where its own root was. It flourishes, looks beautiful, everyone praises it, but if that external light moves away, even for a moment, something inside it trembles, because it never learned to grow alone. What if this weekend no one else was watching? What if for a few hours there was no one to please, to balance, to care for? What would be left? This question is unsettling because it touches on an old fear that without others as a reference point, perhaps nothing recognizable will remain. But this same question is also the gateway to discovering that there has always been a root of one's own there, just waiting for space to remember itself. Think about how many times you've chosen a path by first considering how others would react, and only then, almost automatically, how you actually felt about it. It's not weakness. It's a survival mechanism learned early on, at a time when perhaps truly disagreeing seemed too dangerous. But this mechanism, useful as a child, becomes a cage as an adult. And every cage, however comfortable it may seem inside, is still a cage. And it is precisely here that everything converges. After months of postponing, weeks of ignoring signs, entire days pretending not to notice, the moment arrives when Libra realizes that it is no longer possible to outsource this decision. The universe presents a situation that does not accept half measures, does not accept another round of weighing, does not accept more time. It's like a door that has always been ajar, half closed, half open, exactly as Libra likes it, and which, suddenly, can only be pushed open completely or closed completely. The comfort of the intermediate position no longer exists. And that's where the question hangs in the air, heavy, real, and now what to do with this? Perhaps the most honest answer is to realize that the effort to keep everything balanced for so long has become their own prison. It's like a tightrope walker, so focused on not falling that they forget to look where the rope leads. They become experts at not collapsing, but never get anywhere because all the effort goes towards the balance itself and none towards the destination. Libra can spend their entire life being admired for their ability not to crumble in front of others and, at the same time, never crossing the rope to the end. On the other side of that rope lies something Libra has never allowed herself, a life built from what she truly wants, not from what she avoids losing. A life where harmony is no longer a performance for others, but a genuine inner state. Getting there requires first admitting that standing still in the middle of the rope is also a form of risk, only disguised as security. And it is precisely at this point that astrology meets psychology in an almost uncomfortable way. The paradox of Libra is that it only finds true balance when it stops trying to balance everything all the time. While it insists on controlling every side of the scale, every reaction from others, every possible disagreement, it moves further and further away from the only balance that truly matters, the internal one. It's a paradox that's simple to understand and extremely difficult to live with, because it requires letting go of exactly what always seemed to guarantee security. This is the kind of inner journey that the digital book, The 12 Laws of the Universe, that help the zodiac sign overcome spiritual envy, helps to sustain. Not the balance of someone who doesn't move, but the stability of someone who has already crossed over and knows how to stand firm even without a safety net. It brings together interpretations and exercises designed for those who are tired of balancing everything on the outside while remaining lost on the inside. Access is subject to limited availability. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and take the first step to the other side of the rope. This entire process, the drawer that opens slightly, the route that remembers itself, the tightrope walker who finally looks where the rope leads, converges on the same point, a silent but inevitable confrontation with the very image Libra has constructed of itself over the years. It's not about destroying that image. It's about honestly verifying how much of it is still true and how much has become mere habit, repeated for safety, not by conscious choice. And this weekend carries an energy that doesn't compromise with Libra's tendency to avoid conflict. It's like the tide rising without asking if you're ready to leave the sand. It simply rises, and whoever remains seated ends up wet anyway. There's no more room to pretend that time has stood still. What Libra discovers when there's no more time to postpone it is usually simpler than she feared. It's not a destructive truth. It's simply the realization that she always knew what she needed to do. She just never allowed herself to admit it aloud, because admitting it would mean acting, and acting would ultimately mean choosing a side of the scale. There's a strange relief in this kind of clarity, even when it arrives amidst discomfort. It's similar to that moment when, after hours of carrying a weight without realizing how heavy it was, someone finally takes it off your shoulders, and only then do you feel, by the difference, the true magnitude of what you were carrying. Libras tend to get so used to the weight of deciding for everyone, of balancing everything, that they forget what it's like to feel their own shoulders free. And it's not about becoming a cold person or ceasing to care about those around you. It's about learning that taking care of yourself first isn't selfishness, it's a prerequisite. A scale can only support the weight of others when its own axis is firm. And for years, Libra tried to support everything with an axis that never had the chance to truly stabilize, because it was always busy trying to balance everything else. This truth that the tide brings doesn't ask permission, but it also doesn't come to destroy. It comes to liberate something that has been trapped for too long. If you're already feeling the rising tide, it's time to stop waiting for the sand to dry on its own. The digital book. The 12 laws of the universe that help the zodiac sign overcome spiritual envy exists precisely for this moment, to transform the pressure of the tide into direction, instead of letting it simply drag you down. Teachings, interpretations, and exercises designed to help Libras stop fearing their own power to decide. Access is limited. The link is in the first pinned comment. Click now and choose before the tide chooses for you. In the end, perhaps the beauty of Libra never lay in the absence of conflict, but in its rare ability to remain whole even amidst it. The scales, for the first time, are no longer trying to equalize the plates at any cost, but are simply at peace with the natural weight of each side. It's not about turning your back on those you love, nor about ceasing to value the harmony that has always been, genuinely, one of your greatest gifts. The world needs people capable of seeing all sides, of mediating, of finding beauty even in the midst of chaos. This gift was never the problem. The problem was using it to erase oneself instead of using it to express oneself more fully. The difference between the two is subtle in everyday life, but gigantic in the long-term result. There is a silent strength in those who finally stop running from themselves. It's not the noisy, talkative, and assertive strength sometimes expected of those who turn the key. It's a quieter strength, more like a root taking hold in the ground than a flag being raised. No one needs to notice from the outside. You're the one who will feel the difference first, in the way you breathe before responding, in the way you choose silence out of presence, not fear. This weekend didn't come to throw your life out of balance. It came to remind you that true balance has never been about feeling no weight at all. It's about supporting each side of the scale with the same honesty, even when the sides weigh differently, even when one hurts more than the other, and to discover that, after all, you were always capable of that, even on the days you doubted yourself. Perhaps the most beautiful thing about all this is realizing that Libra never needed to learn to be balanced. They were born with this ability. They just needed, over time, to stop using it only for others and start using it for themselves as well. And when the silence finally returns, after everything this weekend brought, perhaps the shiver you felt at the beginning of this story will no longer seem like a warning of danger. It will simply seem like the sound of something old and true finally finding its place.